Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the second shelf and to another recent reads on Sunday. My video every other Sunday, sometimes every Sunday. Last one was indeed one Sunday ago. Depends on the amount books I read, in which I discuss books with you that I've recently read. And the first book I want to talk to you about is Nonfiction, True Crime, and that's Michelle McNamara's I'll Be Gone in the Dark, which was published almost exactly a year ago in February 2018. Michelle McNamara, she died only recently, 2016, very young. She was born in 1970. But anyway, Michelle McNamara was a screenwriter, a journalist, but she's most famous for her true crime blog. She was very interested in true crime. She followed true crime. She engaged in discussions. She tried to solve crimes. And the book, I'll Be Gone in the Dark, is about one notorious criminal, the so-called Golden State Killer. He is charged, or he is supposed to have committed at least 50 rapes, more than 10 murders, and also more than 100 burglaries in California, in various counties in California in the 1970s and 80s. The book was published after a suspect had been apprehended in April last year. And also after Michelle McNamara had died in 2016. So the book chronicles the cases that the Golden State Killer, that was a name that Michelle McNamara actually gave to him, has committed. So it's partly a reconstruction of some of the crimes that are attributed to that particular criminal. It's also more a memoirish account of Michelle McNamara's involvement in the search for the Golden State Killer. Now, I really love true crime, but the book didn't quite work for me. First of all, I think it's always, of course, a problem if you publish a book posthumously and you have to make sense of the notes that the author leaves behind. So the structure of the book is a bit of a mess, I thought. It gives you a lot of information about various crimes that have been committed. It gives you also some information about Michelle McNamara's involvement, her talks with police officers, former police officers, victims or family of victims. But for me, it didn't sort of paint a clear picture of, in any chronological sense, of what happened in California during that decade, between 1974 and 1986. It also didn't really make clear for me what Michelle McNamara's contribution was, if any, to the case, which was then solved 2 years after she died. So even though I thought, the Golden State Killer is really a very interesting case, because it also shows how long it can take for various police forces to, combine their information and finally get the suspect. It took, almost 4 decades for this one to be apprehended, at least a suspect to be apprehended. But the structure of the book, in some way, it just didn't work for me. But still, if you're interested in that particular case and you want to have information about various of the murders and burglaries and rapes that are attributed to the Golden State Killer, you might enjoy the book more than I did. We stay with the nonfiction, and the next book I read was a biography of sorts, and that's Eve's Hollywood by Lily Anolik, which was published just recently in January. Lily Anolik is a journalist. She writes mainly for Vanity Fair. And this book obviously is about Eve Babbitt. Now, if you don't know Eve Babbitt, she was born in 1943 in Los Angeles. Her father was a musician, her mother an artist, and Eve met famous people, artists, rock stars, Morrison, for example, like, you know, on a frequency like we do grocery shopping. She gained sort of fame or notoriety when she was 20, when a nude picture of her and Marcel Duchamp was taken. I will insert a picture here. There was an exhibition of Marcel Duchamp's work in Los Angeles, and the picture is set in the museum. This book is, that's why I said, a sort of biography, because if you expect a straightforward biography, then this is not the book for you. It's a combination of interviews with Eve Babbitt, because Lili Anolik actually met Eve Babbitt a couple of times, and they talked about Eve Babbitt's life, but it's also about Anolik's own obsession with Eve Babbitt and what that figure of Eve Babbitt meant to her. So I really enjoyed it. I thought it gave a good picture, a portrayal of Los Angeles during the 1960s and 70s. For me, it was informative about Eve Babbitt's life. She is still alive, by the way, and about her sort of development from, a groupie-like figure to an artist and then an author. So I thought it was really interesting. I liked the writing, but like I said, it's not a straightforward biography, so you should, if you're interested in Eve Babbitt, it's probably something for you, but you should have a look at the structure and the writing to see whether you will like it. And I combined my reading of the biography, Hollywood's Eve, by reading, or rereading, I should say, Eve Babbitt's own work, her first collection, this one, Eve's Hollywood, which was first published in 1972, 1974, some of the pieces, but was reissued 3 years ago in 2015. And you can also see the title of her own collection is Eve's Hollywood, and hence the biography I just talked about is called Hollywood's Eve. And the picture on the cover is Eve Babbitt's photography by Annie Leibovitz. Anyway, I read this a long time ago and couldn't really remember a lot, but when I reread it, I was fascinated. I really loved it. I loved Eve Babbitt's style. She's fresh, she's witty, she's sharp. She has an extremely, sharp, to repeat myself, sharp observation of people or events and talk about it. And the way she writes about it is a combination of some pieces that are more like essays, some are really short, only half a page or 2 pages, and some are more fictionalized, memoirish accounts of the people she met, the high school she went to, the parties, but also her 1 year in New York. She stayed in New York for 1 year, and I loved it. I thought that it's Los Angeles during that time really came to life for me, and it's very humorous in a quite in-your-face kind of humor, which I personally really love, but I'm also fascinated by Eve Babbitt. So I enjoy reading her pieces about Los Angeles. But if you've never read that, and if Eve Babbitt interests you, then I can certainly recommend this one, although her second collection is more lauded and more praised than this one, but this is a good place to start. And by the way, for the last book and this book, I will leave some links to information about Eve Babbitt down in the show notes. And then we move on to fiction, sort of. There's a lot of sort of in this video, because there's a lot of sort of in my recent reads. And the book I want to talk to you about is this one, Crudo by Olivia Laing, which came out last summer in June 2018. Olivia Laing is a British writer, mainly non-fiction essays. The first book she published is called To the River, and it's about her journey along the river in which Virginia Woolf drowned herself. And I especially loved her latest essay collection, which came out in 2016, The Lonely City, in which Olivia Laing, living in New York, talks about loneliness or being alone in a big city, and she traces New York artists and how they dealt with loneliness. I love that collection. So this one is Olivia Laing's first novel. And I said sort of because it's a combination of autofiction, because it's about Olivia Laing's life during the summer of 2017, starting in August. She's about to get married to an older poet, a widower. But she, although the book is often talking I, it switches perspective, and then the protagonist is called Kathy Acker. And Kathy Acker was a real person, quite a famous artist who died young in her when she was 40 from breast cancer. I'll leave information about Kathy Acker down below, also a video interview with her from 1986. She died in 1997. If I haven't mentioned that already. She was in the punk movement. She was an experimental writer, postmodern at a time when that term didn't even exist. And she took on other personas, real personas, and incorporated them in her fiction. So that's, I think, why Olivia Laing chose this particular artist to be the I person in the novel. So she combines facts from Kathy Acker's life, for instance, the double breast mastectomy that she had, so the cancer, which is not Olivia, but Kathy. But it's set now, and very much so, because a lot of the book is about current politics, so about Brexit, about Trump, about tweeting, about fake news, about truth and reality. And this combination sort of left me baffled. I wouldn't say that it didn't work for me, that is not the right term, but I didn't quite get it, I think, which means that I have to reread the book, which I will certainly do. But I enjoyed the parts about the now, the reflections on the now and on politics, on Trump and Brexit. I enjoyed those parts the most, and I couldn't quite understand the sort of split persona that the main character takes on. But anyway, it's a short book. It's really well written. The observations are great. So it's still worth it. I can still recommend it. But yeah, like I said, I have to reread it. And the last book I want to talk to you about is a debut memoir which came out last year, end of last year, and that is First Comes Marriage by Huda al-Marashi. Huda al-Marashi is born in America, but from Iraqi immigrant, first generation immigrants. Her parents came to the US from Iraq. And the book is, as the title suggests, about her marriage. What we Westerners would call arranged marriage, because, you know, she met her future husband when they were 6. The families are friends, and then, you know, the marriage is talked about and arranged by her parents and the husband's parents with their consent. I think it's really interesting because it describes a completely different approach and point of view to institutions like marriage and falling in love and dating. Huda al-Marashi comes from a conservative Muslim family, so she is not allowed to date or kiss or have sex before marriage, and neither is her future husband. There's a lot of talk in the book about the meaning of sex in Islam, which I thought was refreshing because I've never read anything like that. And I especially liked the fact that al-Marashi didn't idolize her approach or her parents' approach to marriage. She constantly struggles with the fact that she also wants to have that butterfly moment, and she wants to date, and she wants to fall in love, and she wants her future husband to get on his knees and propose to her. So it's very nuanced approach to the subject, but I learned a lot on how you can view marriage differently and how it is viewed differently in a different culture. So I thought it was really interesting, and it's well written, and the story is engaging on how the family is very much involved in this whole marriage project. And when, for instance, when the future husband didn't achieve as much in studies as he should have. This is discussed with both families, and it would be a reason for Huda to break off the engagement. It also discusses the position of women and how important, achievement in work and study is for her and her mother. So it's like I said, it's very nuanced. So if you're interested in that topic, and especially in a different approach from a different culture, if you are like me, not from the Iraqi culture, then I can certainly recommend this book. And I will leave a link to a review by another booktuber down in the show notes, Kendra Winchester, who has a wonderful channel. If you don't know her, please go and subscribe. She reviewed the book in one of her latest videos, and she did a much better job than I did, so go watch her video as well. Anyway, this was my recent reads for this very sunny Sunday, cold but sunny. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. Talk to me down in the comments, as always, whether you read any of the books, what you felt about them, or any other books. And I'll see you all soon in the next one. Bye-bye.